This week's topic is an interesting one, and I've noticed this more and more how this popular term of midlife crisis that used to be kind of 40s to 50s range when people start questioning the way they've been living. It seems to be starting sooner, sooner and sooner. I see a lot of people, especially girls in their early 30s, are talking about a pre-midlife crisis or a one-third life crisis. And so that got me thinking a little bit about, why is that happening? And I think it's the time when we've spent maybe 15 years living a particular way, going to our jobs, kind of living for outcomes. And it could be productive as well. It could be, nurturing accomplishments and pursuing things. But ultimately, what it is nurturing the outer life, right? So we can only go so long nurturing the outer world, engaging with the world around us and pursuing things and wanting things. And even though wanting things is ultimately a reflection of what we lack within. So we're always looking to make up for that on the outside. That's what's driving us, our engagement with the outside. But we can only go so long engaging with the world around us, nurturing that part of our experience until we realize we've been neglecting our inner world. We haven't been nurturing ourselves inside. And so our kind of uh, dismay or unhappiness or discontentment with the world around us is ultimately a reflection of our neglect within us. So if we're not in alignment within, if we're not living from our own inner truth, then we're likely pursuing things on the outside that aren't a reflection of who we really are, what our purpose is, or what we're meant to be doing. They're more likely a reflection of outside voices. When we grow up and we get indoctrinated and conditioned very early on to react to society's needs and wants and desires and our parents and our peers and the media, and we get conditioned very quickly to live according to other people's voices, and we get cut off more and more from our own. There really aren't any opportunities in the institutions in which we grow up, especially in the Western world, where we are taught and given the opportunity to go within and see what we really want and what we're really meant to be doing. So it can happen where we start building up this life over 10, 15, 20 plus years that isn't really our own. We start living this life that is based on the beaten path, the check boxes of what is supposed to bring us happiness, what is supposed to bring us fulfillment. We live towards making other people happy and thinking that somehow that's where we need to seek the validation and um, our own salvation. So then we get to a point, at least, 10, 15 years of this will drive us to the point where we realize this isn't the way to go. There has to be a better way to live life. It can't just be the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And that point of happiness, that day when it all comes together, that we're all kind of promised at some level, that we kind of expect at some level, that day never comes. It's just again the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And we never reach a point of permanent peace, permanent happiness. We can, of course, achieve joy and happiness and success and achieving outcomes and social prestige and goals that we set ourselves. But we realize very quickly that that happiness is temporary. It's not a permanent type of happiness. The world is changing, ever changing. It's the nature of life to keep evolving. And so any experience we have in that external world is temporary. It's coming and going. That's not a bad thing. People hear the phrase. I remember a time when I would read inspirational quotes and they were all about, um, you know, happiness is temporary or joy is temporary. And I would get upset when I would read that because it felt like it was a negative thing. Another thing might have been how the best formula for happiness is to have low expectations or no expectations. And I remember reading that and going like, "Oh, come on. That's no way to live," because it sounded negative. I didn't understand yet that setting yourself up with this world of expectations and goals and constant outcomes that we're living for is that robs us of truly experiencing what is happening right now, which is the only thing that's real. And if we're not truly engaged and through our sensations and observing our thoughts, being aware of who we are right now and what we're doing, finding our groundedness in that awareness of what we're doing. And that is always an experience of presence. It's never some thought about the future and chasing outcomes and feeling like there's no time, there's never enough time to get things done. All of those things they deplete over time, and they're essentially a fear of the unknown. It's living in our heads. It's living for some point in the future when we're supposed to finally find that permanent happiness, and it never comes. So ultimately, um, having no expectations is allowing everything to unfold as it is. It's allowing all the possibilities to exist without limiting ourselves to one specific sliver of reality that we make up from the conditioning that we grow up in. A handful of beliefs, couple hundred beliefs, however many there may be, that then constitutes our reality, and we try to find ourselves through those handful of beliefs. We try to navigate life through those handful of beliefs and opinions. Essentially, they're just opinions, and opinions can change over time, and there's nothing substantial and nothing permanent about an opinion. And that's why, and we'll do this in our guided uh, meditation session today. That's why when we recognize how fickle our mind really is, that it can't stay focused on something for more than a few seconds, that the realization hits that that is the tool we've been using to navigate life. That is the tool we've been using to make life determining decisions. And it's kind of shocking just how inadequate living purely through the mind really is. And using it as a tool is a wonderful thing. But when the mind controls us and we're always chasing expectations, comparing what is to what we think should be, that's when we run into trouble. That's when we get disoriented, confused. We feel lost and without true purpose. And we feel like there's never enough time to get it all done. And over time, this chasing of the next moment leads to an inner depletion. We lose touch with our true self, our soul, our heart, what really inspires us, our passions. We start planning everything out. Passion can't be scheduled. When you're passionate about something, when you feel inspired to do something, that is the moment to do that something. Not next year, not when there's a better time or you have more availability, all of that just interrupts the flow, takes us out of that moment of inspiration. And next year, when you finally have time, then you'll have you'll be a different person and you'll want to do different things. And you should do those things then and stay in alignment with the life force that is flowing through us. So this midlife crisis, when it hits, unfortunately, very few places, if any, really recognize that as an opportunity, a golden opportunity for reflection, insight, growth, expansion, looking at your life and saying, okay, it's gotten me to this point, which it all had a purpose. But what can I change now? Because clearly my mind, my body, my spirit is saying there needs to come change into my life, and things need to be tweaked and tuned and adjusted, maybe bigger changes, maybe smaller changes, but whatever it is, there's a sense that is rising within us that we need to take a good hard look at what we've been doing. And ultimately, it's always about finding a deeper meaning, a true inner blueprint that is wanting to rise to the surface and say, hey, you've been living for external purposes, but there's something inside of us that is wanting to really express itself, something we're really born to do. And that needs attention now. And unfortunately, I don't know of a single, workplace that gives you self-realization leave, that gives you a midlife crisis, a vacation, or an enlightenment break, probably because they're afraid that you won't come back. And there's a good chance of that. The longer we insist and we pursue those kind of external voices and those external outcomes, the more we become off track from what we really should be doing. And we haven't had the time to really nurture ourselves. And it's only through nurturing ourselves. Often you hear that, you're being selfish by focusing on yourself and self-centered and absorbed and some of these judgments. But ultimately, it's through focusing on yourself and nurturing yourself and healing yourself that we can then open up and start being of service to others. If we're caught up in our own stuff still, our own baggage, our own traumas, our own conditioning, we're really not in a position to help others because we're not coming from a place of strength. We're not coming from a place of alignment. We're not coming from a place of our cup is full and now we can spill over and help others. But rather, we're constantly depleted. We're constantly misaligned. And we're constantly still seeking and searching and feeling challenged by the world. And that, rightfully so, keeps the energy within us, inward focused. We should be working on ourselves. We really can't open up until we've healed from something, when we've overcome something. That's when our energy naturally opens up to be of service to others, to be able to help them overcome and heal from those challenges that we've worked through. Until we work through them, we can't help others to work through them. It makes sense. But so when that time comes, it's so important to recognize that the body, the mind, your whole being is saying, maybe even screaming, it needs attention, it needs self-care, self-love, self-reflection. And to take the time then to make the space to communicate that out, that this is needed now, is essential. I know too many people who hits everybody at some point. It's just living for the external. At some point, everyone sooner or later reaches the point where like they are being asked, their beingness is asking them to go within and really take a hard look at the way they've been living And unfortunately, I've seen this in so many of my friends and others where they basically just numb out and uh, go to the doctor, pop some pills, and their depression, is the root of it is not being looked at, and they just go back to work the next day. Just keep on doing the same thing, and then we get in even deeper trouble because now we're really pushing down the inner voice that is wanting to come to the surface. And that ultimately doesn't benefit anyone, doesn't benefit us, our family, or those close to us, people we work with, and the world. We're not living in alignment of our true frequency. Now, the flip side of that is when the new chapter starts calling, it can be making changes in the existing framework of your work and your family structures and so forth, and just being more present and grounded and engaged with that. That alone can vastly improve the quality of your life, vastly, if that's the voice that's wanting to come out, vastly nurture the frequency that you're operating at, and thus nurture those around us. It can also mean making changes, changing your career, moving to a different place, lifestyle changes in our diet or the way we consume information and media. And that side of things can be scary as well, because now we're coming out of our comfort zones. That's ultimately what life is asking us to do, is to grow out of what we know. And now we're confronted with the unknown, the new, and that's when our mind, which is a tool designed to know things, and now suddenly we're asked to confront the unknown, a new chapter, a new sense of self, which in large part is letting go of what we know, letting go of control, letting go of thinking we know and thinking we are in control, which ultimately we're not. So all of this can lead to fear and anxiety and trepidation of leaving behind the old way of thinking and living, and to embark into a new way of thinking and living that is more aligned. And the longer we wait to tackle that, the more down we get on ourselves, the more extreme we then feel like we need to uh, come up with extreme measures to create change in our life. So the sooner we start listening, the more we're in tune with our inner voice throughout life, not just a midlife crisis or a pre-midlife crisis, but at any point. The sooner we stay aligned, the sooner we take action on what is being asked of us, the better. Because it's, again, we're only being asked to stay in alignment. Whenever there's anything that arises in us, it's asking us to be more in alignment. It's showing us that the path that we've on that might have been perfectly fine up until now. The changes have to be made. There's an adjustment, a repositioning, course correction in your life so that you can be more in alignment. And being more in alignment ultimately is being more aware. Essentially, that's what life is asking us to do, is become more aware of who we are. And so when we're being asked to make changes, it's not so much that we suddenly have new ideas about who we are. It's more about stripping away, releasing any layers of misconceptions, any layers of conditioning, any layers of beliefs, any layers of identification. All of that is really in the way of who we truly are. Deep down at the core, we are this beautiful, complete self, this soul, whatever you want to call it. And it's just the layers of conditioning that prevent us from being in tune with that. And so when that inner voice arises, it's more about letting go of who we think we are than trying to become somebody new and kind of changing what we identify with. If we're just identifying with another version of ourselves, and we're not really coming out of identification. We're just identifying with something else. And ultimately, it's the same symptoms then, is that we're not in alignment and with our true self. And that is to be connected to our inner voice. And that inner voice is always responding to what is in front of us, our actual situation. It doesn't respond to thoughts about the past, regrets, or whatever, or projections, expectations about the future. Our inner voice is always responding. It's resonating with what is the present moment. So that's why we have to start doing so that we can feel that resonance. And that what resonates within us is our blueprint. That's what's telling us this situation is for us, this situation isn't. And that's our internal GPS, our guidance system. It's built in, it's right there. It's not the head voices, not the thinking it through, not the trying to anticipate every possible outcome. It's feeling if something feels right. And then, of course, taking action, clear action. And the very first step to taking action, to creating change, is actually accepting, essentially surrendering to things as they are right now. That becomes one of the biggest hurdles in creating change. So you feel like, okay, I've lived my life a certain way. Life is calling me to bring in change, and there's this tendency to then want to create the change out of a place of resistance. Like, I don't want to be my old self. I want to be my new self. You kind of dig in your heels. But that change that comes from a place of rejection of what currently is much harder to do, if maybe even impossible, than to accept where you are right now, to accept that the path that led you to where you are now was the path you had to take, you had to travel, that it was ultimately always a reflection of who you were at that point in time, that you were experiencing a mirror of yourself. The world is ultimately always showing us ourselves. We're always experiencing our version of reality through our lens of our experiences and our conditioning. And the person standing right next to us, experiencing, witnessing the exact same situation, will have a completely different interpretation based on their internal makeup. So we're always only experiencing ourselves. And thus, nothing is right or wrong. Nothing should be, there's no regret or guilt about this we've done or the other decisions we've made. It was always to the best of our abilities. We're always doing the best we can because we're only experiencing ourselves and in whatever way we are at every turn, every corner, every moment in time. And there's an absoluteness in that. It cannot be criticized, it cannot be judged, it cannot be denied or invalidated. Everything we experience is who we are. And accepting that is the only way we can move forward in peace from that moment. Learn from our experiences, always look for the lesson. But that is what takes us to the next moment and the next opportunity to experience ourselves with the learnings and the lessons from what has already transpired. So that requires us to stay in this place of peace. If we want to move forward, if we want to create change, if we want to create new chapters in our life and peel back the layers of conditioning and live more in alignment, we have to be okay with the previous layer of misalignment. Even if we recognize, oh my gosh, I was so misaligned. Oh my goodness, cannot believe I was living this way, or I didn't notice this before. All these things. That's why it's called growth, and that's why it's uncomfortable. Growth is always uncomfortable. And that is what becoming more self-aware is about, is recognizing that we were doing things more unconsciously before, blindly before. And now a time is emerging that is calling us on us to become more self-aware. And so as we notice, as we bring the light of our awareness to our blind spots, That's when we start to uh, recognize that we have to be okay with who we are so that we can move forward. And in fact, there's beauty and uh, actually miracle, if you look at it that way, contained in who we are at every moment along the way, to become more grounded in our awareness of self. This growing awareness of who we are makes every moment special, makes every stage of our evolution, of our expansion special. It's like, wow, I can't believe who I am. And there's so much more about me that I haven't discovered yet. And I can't wait till the next moment comes along to help reflect me back to myself as a mirror of who I am and who I want to become and who I'm meant to become. That inner voice will respond to what's there and what resonates and what doesn't. And so there's this great adventure unfolding of your own blueprint and your own purpose. So that is a forward momentum. It's a solution oriented mindset. It's thinking and embracing and being curious and open minded about what's to come, as opposed to spending time in regret, as opposed to trying to predict the future. It's pretty bizarre if you think about it, that we try to predict the future. And that's only because when we live through our mind, the mind that wants to know things, the mind that is so uncomfortable with the unknown, that it will try to project anything, as ridiculous as it may be, just so it can feel comfortable that it knows something, that it think it knows something. And then life always turns out different. Anything we plan will always be different. The detail of any situation can never be anticipated fully, can never be predicted fully. And so we arrive at each moment of expectation when it comes and realize that it's not what we expected it to be. It's always different. And then we're at odds with that. We resist that. We want it to be our way. We want it to match our prediction of the future. And it isn't, and we get frustrated, and then we push back, and then we're constantly living in resistance. And when we're in resistance, the energy of resistance, if you tune into that, it keeps us small, it keeps us narrow, it shrinks us down to like obsession with just particular thoughts or ideas, and we're not really open to see everything that's happening. Every situation has a endless perspectives, all kinds of different angles. When we're obsessed about our expectation, we're just seeing one angle, one little perspective on it. And that's always an extremely limiting experience. But rather to be open to seeing the situation from all angles, all perspectives, to see opportunities that we wouldn't see if we're just insisting on our version of reality. So there's so much more to our experience when we're coming at it from a place of not judgment, from our place of awareness. When we're in our awareness, no situation can really get to us, because when we're aware of the situation, we're the container of the situation. We're bigger than the situation. We're bigger than our thoughts about the situation. We're bigger than our feelings about the situation. We're bigger than anyone else's opinion about the situation, because we're aware of everything. Our awareness is the container of life entering our field of experience and exiting our field of experience. So we are much bigger than anything that can ever happen. And we don't get mired and get shrunk down into this little existence of insisting on our version of what should be happening. But rather we see what is happening. And that is always a much bigger experience. You're really experiencing the full flow of life coming through us. And that's when we become a participant in the unfolding of life. We're coming out of resistance. We're coming out of thinking we know what a situation should be and actually experiencing it. And that ultimately is the process of coming out of our heads and into our body, experiencing the wisdom, the resonance of being present with whatever is happening and letting that guide our evolution. So I forgot to mention in the beginning, whenever there's any questions or comments, feel free to type it into the chat or raise your virtual hand. Always happy uh, to answer questions because everyone's life situation is different. Some people are starting new relationships, others are starting a new career, or they're feeling a desire to bring change into their life. And in other ways, if things are holding them back. So um, always open to questions here, and oh, you know where to reach me outside of this as well. Roman, you have a question.
Hey guys. Hey Chris.
Great to
Nice
see
to see you
you.
again.
Yes, wonderful.
Yeah. I thought I would join this call, especially because I'm pretty much in exactly the situation that you're describing. I don't know if you remember, we met in Canada a few months ago, and I'm basically changing a lot in my life right now. So I'm changing my job. Actually, there is a possibility to go on a leave of absence in Austria, at least, to find your true calling in a certain way. It's called an educational leave. So you got to do some courses. And you can even do courses in spirituality and yoga, I found out. So I'm actually heading for that, just on a side note. But quite generally, my question is more about a practical approach, because I feel that even though I feel now there is this new thing opening up, and it's not since yesterday. I've been doing this since many years. So it was obvious to me that my career in the field where I was wouldn't take me anywhere where I want to really be, right? So, but still, especially in the last days, I understand about um, there is changes inside happening, right? And for me, they're challenging. Like I get anxiety, I get a little bit of like a panicky feeling, if you want, like this unsettledness inside of myself, even though I know there's no reason for it, because I'm very secure about what I do. It was a long decision. I'm very happy with what happened before. I'm okay with all the layers, so to say, of my existence. I don't feel like I pressured myself into something too much, but still there is this actual feeling, emotional feeling of unsettled, and I wouldn't call it anxiety. It's like a core of panicky kind of, nearly even. So I'm wondering, because I'm dealing with this since the last 3 days. So I'm wondering, is there like a practical approach, a practical technique that you would recommend from your experience that you could, like, to deal with it, because I'm accepting it. I do spiritual work since quite some time. So I thought I'm a little bit, I can see it against the backdrop of the total awareness, everything you speak about, but still it's there, right? So is it because it's not fully accepted, or is it because I think that if I fully accepted it, it would go away, and it's not going away? So I'm in this loop of thinking I might not have fully accepted it because it's still there. And then it's like, help me.
Mm,
Yes.
absolutely. Yes. So that's a great situation. It's great to hear that in Austria they have this kind of quasi spiritual leave. So that's really a positive. Definitely take advantage of that. So
Yeah.
the key is when you experience this anxiety, when you have these pings of panic, what is your response to that? Are you able to hold space for that and say, yeah, I'm feeling it. There it is. But keep marching forward, keep following whatever calling is starting to emerge? Or do you stay kind of more absorbed? You feel frightened by it, you push it away, it pulls you into it more than you'd like, or maybe even completely. So if you were to rate your ability to stay aware, to stay on the side of awareness of those sensations, 10 is completely aware, right? Meaning, yep, I'm feeling panic right there, right here in my stomach, or feeling a knot over here, and there it is. But you stay completely grounded in your awareness of it, versus letting it get to you, right? If 0 is complete identification, which it pulls you into depression and fear and panic attacks and all of that. Where in there would you rate yourself?
I would give myself a solid 6, I think, something around that, because actually I'm not really torn in any direction by it. You know, it's just there in the background, and it's also that I'm trying to befriend it in a certain way because I understand this is a necessary. It feels a little bit like it's a layer of my previous existence, if you want to call it, that just needs to express itself. But still, I'm trying to figure out what is the root of it. You know, I'm kind of like, is it the panic because of, oh, where will I end up in 6 months? Or is it like, oh, what should I do in this like time? Or like, I don't really, I can't really figure out the exact start. Maybe it's that, you know, but I kind of, I can accept that it's there. That's okay.
All right, good. So you're in a good spot already. A 6 is a solid, place to be. There's still a reaction, it sounds like, to those feelings that they bring up this, you're looking for the root of it. Ultimately, what the only thing that matters is that you're feeling a particular sensation. Where it comes from doesn't really matter. Knowing what caused it doesn't really inform anything. All that is real right now is what you're feeling. And to stay in complete awareness of that sensation without pushing it away, without reacting to it, is what's going to allow that layer of stuck feelings from the past to you with your awareness, it starts to break up and then loosen and then leave you again. So you're still engaging with it in a way that's keeping it stuck, not as severely as letting it really pull you into it, but there's still kind of a reaction to it. So the way to get out of that is what we'll do in our guided meditation today is learning to observe that feeling fully without pushing it away, without pushing it down, without allowing it's allowing that sensation to arise and pass. Like if you can hold space for it, then you'll notice the changing nature of life is in our thoughts and feelings as well. Thoughts come and go, feelings arise and pass. And it's our giving them our attention, which is a form of reaction that causes them to linger. We amplify them, they stay around longer. Now, if you can hold space for that, do you know where in your body you feel the panic or the anxiety? Are you able to locate that?
Yeah, it's pretty much in the stomach. It feels a little bit like I'm a bit getting sick, you know, and also in the legs. I have this feeling that the legs are getting shaky, which is more or less the symptoms of when you get a cold or something like this.
Okay, perfect. All right. So what you said before there of making friends with that feeling, right? Embracing it. That is ultimately what will help you release it. So what I suggest is, really examine it, look at its shape, its size, its color, look at its texture. Um, can you look around it? Is it three-dimensional? Can you move it with your attention? All of this examination takes you out of the reactive mind and keeps you engaged with it in a way where you're purely observing. You're not trying to interpret. You're not trying to like say this is good or bad, or I want that or I don't want that. You're engaging with it in an unbiased way by examining it. So sit with that feeling whenever it comes up. Even just talking about it right now, you may have noticed that it's feeling triggered and might come up a little bit. And so sit with that. It could be in today's session or afterwards, or every day if you have a meditation practice. And just simply observe, hold space for it, examine it, locate it, notice if it's changing, right? You'll notice that as you give it your unbiased attention, as you examine it, it will start to shift. It will start to change its characteristics. And just keep noticing that, because that's when those are the signs that it's starting to break up, and the energy of it is starting to become unstuck. And you need to just do this for as long as it takes. Sometimes it can be minutes, it could be days and weeks, but if you sit with something and just give it your unbiased attention like that, your awareness, right? You're holding space for it with your awareness, essentially. Then it will break up and it will leave you. And before you know it, you'll sit down the next time and you go, I can't locate it anymore. Or it's gotten smaller and less and less. You'll see the change, you'll notice it. So just keep working on that. And you never know what is lurking underneath that. So you release that layer, and then some other layers will come to the surface. And all right, so this is all part of the journey of self realization and just exploring oneself. It's really with our consciousness we can fully explore ourselves. We can fully heal ourselves and really start to amplify our inner life, and our inner voice will come through more loudly and more clearly as we come out of our reaction to our layers. So I have, I'm excited for you, and I definitely want to hear, about your journey. So please come back and check in or keep me posted in one way or another.
Yeah, maybe we'll see each other in Bali end of this
Yes,
year. I will
yes,
write you.
yes,
Okay, thanks.
exactly,
Thanks, Chris.
exactly. Thank you, Roman. And I hope that was helpful for everyone else as well. You can absolutely, anything that's bothering you, whenever you feel triggered, give your attention to that feeling, examine it, look for where it is. I do private sessions, and I have yet to meet anybody who isn't able to identify the spot in their body where a particular sensation arises. And you just engage with it. Engage with it by examining it. Some people even recommend, giving it a name, giving it a hug. A lot of inner child healing is a similar technique. And just being a presence to these stuck feelings. The only thing that's keeping them stuck, these traumas from the past, these wounds from early childhood usually and so forth, is our reaction to them. We push them down, and sometimes it's so unconscious and instant that we push it down that we don't even know it's there. So the fact that it's already showing itself and you're aware of it, you're a solid 6, Roman, that you're aware. It's basically just put in the time, and you can rid yourself of this and release it, and then you're off on the next part of your journey. So you're in a great spot. So with that said, let's practice. Let me just check the chat here. Yes, middle life crisis, opportunity to be a better me. Yeah, you're in a situation that you didn't imagine. And this is asking you to come out of your comfort zone. Absolutely. What does it mean when I say we are bigger than the situation? So if you can be aware of a thought, that means you are not your thoughts, right? You're bigger than the thought. If a feeling can arise in you and you can be aware of that feeling, that sensation in your body, everything we just talked about, then you are not the feeling. You're not identified with the feeling. You're bigger than the feeling. Your awareness is a container for all of that, all of those thoughts and feelings, all of that life experience happening. So nurturing our awareness muscle and staying grounded in our awareness in any situation. If we stay more on the side of awareness than on the side of identification with the situation, then we'll always be in a good spot. It's never perfect. We're never super aware of everything all the time. Situations still happen that kind of pull us into them. But if we can stay on the side of awareness, then we're in a great place, because nothing can get to us from there. Um, you could, I wake up on days, and I do a scan of my body is the first thing I do in the morning. And I notice what kind of energy is there today. And there could be iffy energy or depressive energy. Who knows where it comes from? We're energetic beings. Energy is flowing through us all the time. As long as you just stay aware of those feelings, the awareness, prevents those feelings, from that energy, from getting to us, from overtaking us. And B, the awareness of those feelings is what allows that energy to come and go. Right? So staying on the side of awareness is ultimately our healing mechanism in every situation. Staying aware that we're feeling triggered when we talk to people that trigger us, or some life situation happens, or even just sitting in traffic and somebody cuts us off. Staying aware of feeling triggered, and that trigger will be a lot less impactful. We will linger on it less long, right? We don't amplify it as much, and so we come out of our reactivity more and more and more, the more we can stay aware of our experience in our situations. So hope that was helpful. Let's practice nurturing our self-awareness muscle. We're going to do a quick time check. All right. We're going to do a simple breathing exercise. I call it thought awareness. And it's essentially, we focus our attention on the incoming and outgoing breath at the entrance of our nostrils. There's an area right here that's sensitive enough where you can feel the air passing through. And as we're focusing our attention on our breath, you will notice very quickly, sometimes within a few seconds, how the mind starts to drift, how the mind is pulling our attention away from where we want our attention to be, and it's pulling us into thought land, and down rabbit holes. And the key is to notice, when we notice that our mind has drifted, to not react to that, but simply to notice and bring our attention back to the incoming and outgoing breath at the entrance of our nostrils, because that's where we want our attention to be. And so this is a microcosm of our everyday situation. Whenever we notice any situation, all day long, these situations happen, that is different from what we want it to be, is to allow it to be the way it is, see it for what it is, accept it for what it is, and that keeps us out of reactivity to it, and that keeps us in a place of clarity. And then we just take clear action to bring our attention back to where we want it to be, to get back on track after we're cut off from somebody in traffic, after we notice something is unfolding differently, that we then see it for what it is, accept it for what it is, and take the path of least resistance, is what we're talking about, right? Is to get back on track to where we want our life to where it resonates and how we want it to unfold. So the simple exercise, and Roman, you can do this anywhere, all day long. You're my example now. Is just to focus your attention on your breath before we go into an important meeting, whenever we feel triggered. It's a simple universal tool that everyone has, and let's practice it right now. And I'm going to guide you through the first few minutes, and then you take it on your own for another 10 minutes or so, and then we'll close it out at the top of the hour. All right. With that said, let's find a comfortable position. Spine straight, bones stacked. And with your eyes and mouth closed, focus your attention on the incoming and outgoing breath at the entrance of your nostrils. If you have trouble locating your breath, you may breathe slightly harder once or twice. And then return your breath to natural breath, normal breath. Let the detail of your breath pull you in closer. If it's more in the left nostril, let it be the left nostril. If it's more in the right nostril, let it be the right nostril. Or if it's both nostrils, let it be both nostrils. Notice the temperature of the incoming breath. Notice the temperature of the outgoing breath. Notice if there's a difference. Notice the pace of the incoming breath. Notice the pace of the outgoing breath. And notice if there's a difference. And whenever you find that your mind has wandered, simply notice it, and without frustration, bring your attention back to the incoming and outgoing breath at the entrance of your nostrils. Natural breath, normal breath. Observing your breath as it is, not wanting it to be different. When you feel ready, you may gradually open your eyes. Relax your body. Notice your environment. Notice yourself in your environment. Notice the energy in your body. Notice your aliveness. Feels so good. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining on this Sunday, wherever you are. I hope you have a beautiful rest of your weekend and then off into a successful week. And we'll see you next time.